vacant lots.
What did we do wrong?
Half-built houses.
Terrible. Terrible.
Thousands spent with little or nothing to show for it.
There is no shortage of construction in the Sunshine State.
That's right. Projects are constantly popping up. In fact, the number of employees in contracting is as high as it's been since 2011.
And while you can trust most of those licensed contractors, there are some who will leave projects unfinished and their customers out tens of thousands of dollars.
We know because we've done so many stories on them. And these new victims often call us asking for help.
Most of the time, it sounded legitimate to all of us because he looks.
I believed him.
Bob Medeo, Debbie Hampton, and Jim Mueller all live on Marco Island.
That's where we always wanted to be.
They all hired the same contractor to build a new home.
Joyce loved the model. He had a beautiful model.
But they tell me Steve Hannell didn't finish the job.
I mean, is he stealing from you?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Seems to be.
Absolutely.
There are 3 of 8 different customers we've talked to who say they had a similar experience with Hannell. After making deposits and draws, his customers complain construction moved at a snail's pace. City records confirm projects lasted years longer than contracted.
It just dragged on and on and on.
Subcontractors claim they weren't getting paid. Under Florida law, the way to fix that is to file liens on the properties.
There was actually 4 liens, I think, against my house.
The contractors started calling me and telling me they were going to put a lien against my house because it hadn't been paid.
We have $115,000 worth of liens on our home today.
Eventually, those homeowners found someone else to finish their homes.
My house was supposed to cost in the upper 800s, and I wound up spending 1.1 plus.
In total, 4 complaints have been filed with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation against him. NBC2 has records showing DBPR closed all 4 of those cases, saying there wasn't enough evidence to support a violation. We also asked the Collier County Sheriff's Office if they were investigating Hannell. In a statement, they said, records and documents have been subpoenaed, and we are actively investigating multiple allegations against a licensed contractor.
Hi, Mr. Hannell.
We tried tracking down Steve Hannell to answer our questions.
All the money was allocated to business. None of it went in my pocket.
Was it allocated to the jobs from the people who paid it?
Yes.
You know, if it's not, it's potentially illegal.
Yes.
But this routine of chasing down contractors feels all too familiar for the NBC2 investigators. That's because we've already done it several times.
What do you have to say to all the people you ripped off? Mr. CHENEY. More than a dozen people tell me that builder Chris CHENEY of Southern Premier took their money and never finished their homes. In addition to several lawsuits, I also found complaints filed with DBPR and the Cape Coral Police.
He should go to jail. I mean, that is just out and out fraud.
Please tell me where the money went. What happened on these projects?
And at least 15 customers sued Chris Pascal of Bonita Springs floor covering, accusing him of taking their deposits while leaving their projects incomplete.
Why will Walter not speak to us directly?
Well, Walter he's very busy.
We also interviewed nearly a dozen people who say their pools were left unfinished by Walter Rowley of Sand Dollar Pool and Spa.
So we're at like $20,000.
We're out about $24,000.
$8,000.
When we add up all of these customer claims, it comes to more than $1 million. And we're only talking about the contractors we covered here on NBC2 in the last 2 years.
All of these contractors were at one point licensed or qualified through someone else's license with the state. And the homeowners came to us wanting to know if they're being held accountable.
They are telling us their stories in hopes of helping others.
NBC2 investigator Rachel Polansky is here with what we've uncovered.
8 different people.
I just wanted a pool for my young daughter and son.
Sold 8 different dreams.
And he basically started a little bit of the work, and then after the hurricane, never came back.
That they say turned into nightmares.
It's a modern day stick up, you know. Right. They just don't have a gun.
So how much money have you lost throughout this ordeal?
$15,000. We were down $23,000.
These people claim that 3 different licensed Southwest Florida contractors took their money but didn't finish their projects.
We had liens that exceeded $100,000.
We lost around $40,000.
All 8 filed complaints through the state, the Attorney General's office, or local law enforcement.
It's a serious situation in Florida that something has to be done.
But none of the 3 business owners in question, Christopher CHENEY of Southern Premier, Walter Rowley of Sand Dollar Pool and Spa, or Stephen Hannell, a Marco Island builder, have been arrested, charged, or jailed. A check on their records reveals that CHENEY's license is now listed as inactive. Rowley, who was licensed through another man, is now listed as relinquished, and Hannell still has an active license, although Collier County Sheriff's Office tells NBC2 that they are investigating.
There's no convictions for them. There's no repercussion for their actions. And there really has to be.
2 of these 3 contractors ran their businesses out of Cape Coral, so we took our questions straight to KPD's Corporal Philip Mullen.
So do you think law enforcement is doing everything they can to hold these bad contractors accountable?
I do. Unfortunately, it is a complicated statute, but we can't deal in civil law. We only deal in criminal law.
He's right. Many contractor disputes are civil, but when the NBC2 investigators went to work reading through Florida law, we found Statute 713, also known as the construction lien law. And one provision of that law, 713.345, says if a contractor misuses a construction payment, there are criminal penalties. Real estate attorney Kevin Drzezinski confirms it's a felony.
There is teeth in the law for the people, but the question is whether there is enforced is something that has to be answered by the state attorney or the sheriff's department, how they deal with that.
So we went back to our Southwest Florida law enforcement agencies asking for all incident reports involving Statute 713 for the last 2 years, as well as any other incident report in which a person was arrested regarding contracting work. Fort Myers, Naples, and KPD had 0 reports. The Collier and Charlotte County Sheriff's Offices also had 0, and the Lee County Sheriff's Office had 2 arrests related to contracting fraud. One of those 2 cases has since been dropped by the state attorney's office.
And victims want to know, why aren't police arresting these guys?
Well, from a law enforcement perspective, it starts at the road, of course. Your patrol officer is going to come out and take that complaint. They have to determine whether there's probable cause for an arrest.
It just seems, though, with all these people saying the same thing and having the same stories, it looks like it fits the statute. Why does it take so long? Why doesn't it fit the statute?
It's a matter of, like I said, we send the warrant request to the state, and we package together the best case we can if we determine that, yes, we believe this rises to the level of a crime, but we have to send it to the state for a filing decision. At that point, we just have to wait to see what comes back from the state.
So we called and emailed our state attorney's office, requesting the total number of complaints or warrant requests involving Florida Statute 713 for the last 2 years. Spokesperson Samantha Sion told me, quote, there were no public records under that statute. That statute was utilized one time and it is not a public record, end quote. She went on to tell me that the Economics Crimes Unit has had 72 convictions in the last year, none related to contractor fraud.
Do you think that's a problem?
Absolutely.
Definitely sounds like it's a problem.
What would you say to law enforcement? What would you say to the state attorney's office when it comes to contractor fraud?
It's theft.
It's theft.
They proved that they stole money. Arrest them. Put them through. Do that a couple of times, and people would stop doing it so much.
Right. Make an example of a few, and then the contractors would think twice about taking your money and just pocketing it.
Through public record requests, I also confirmed that 28 Lee, Collier, and Charlotte County contractors lost their licenses over the last 2 years. When I ran their names through court records, I confirmed that 0 faced criminal charges related to contracting fraud. Kelly?
Tonight, NBC2 investigator David Hodges questions the agency that gives contractors their licenses and finds out how you can get your money back.
This is a complaint form with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Consumers will file one of these when they've had an issue with a licensed contractor. I've spoken with 4 people who've had a complaint against this man. All of those complaints have been rejected.
Hi, Mr. Hanel.
This is Steve Hanel, a certified general contractor and home builder on Marco Island.
We want to talk with you about 8 customers you have who are a little bit upset about their housing projects.
Okay.
Do you have a minute to talk to me about that?
I'd rather not do a on-camera interview.
At this point, he's not being held accountable.
Hanel's customers had no problem going on camera, including Joe Rocco and David Cordy.
We liked Steve a lot. We liked his ideas.
They both hired Hanel for major housing renovations. NBC2 spoke with 6 other people who also worked with him, and they tell me they all ran into nearly the exact same issue.
He paid none of the subcontractors, 0.
Rocco, Cordy, and the other homeowners had more than $500,000 of liens placed against their homes by subcontractors trying to force payment. But the homeowners all have records showing they were making timely payments to Hanel.
And I don't have the money.
Is the money not there because you're doing something different with it?
No. All the money was allocated to business. None of it went in my pocket.
Hanel denied to me that he was aware of any liens filed on the properties.
You're saying you're not aware of any liens, but we both know there are.
I am not aware of any liens. There are none as we speak. And If you think I'm doing something criminal, then, you know, they would have to prove that.
The Collier County Sheriff's Office told me they have received a complaint against Hanel, and in an email they said they are investigating. 4 of the homeowners, including Rocco and Cordy, also filed complaints with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation to get Hanel's license revoked.
And we want to make sure nobody else gets hurt by this person.
NBC2 has records showing DBPR turned down all 4 complaints, saying the evidence submitted isn't enough to find a violation. I requested an interview with the Construction Industry Licensing Board Director, Dan Biggins. The communications staff turned down my request several times. So we tracked Biggins down at a Construction Licensing Board meeting at the Biltmore Hotel in Miami.
Could you answer for me why probable cause when it's not found, why those complaints aren't then shared with the people who originally filed the complaints?
Biggins told me 10 different times to send my questions to their communications office.
Like I said, if you can talk to our communications office, it's just how we have it set up. You've got to go through the communications office.
But you could answer this for me right now, couldn't you?
Afterwards, a spokesperson for DBPR sent us a statement saying protecting the public and assisting eligible recovering consumers is a top priority for the department. Lisa Johnson filed a complaint against Chris CHENEY and Southern Premier after her home was never built. She received $15,000 from the recovery fund by being persistent with her complaint and keeping meticulous records. Tina Holm and Michael Steinke also filed complaints against $100 Pool and Spa. The company relinquished its license, but even those 3 feel the process could be easier and more transparent.
We have to have somebody to help us through this process. We've got nothing. It's almost like the laws and the statutes are there to protect the contractors.
Cape Coral police arrest a contractor for fraud. Christopher CHENEY, owner of Southern Premier, is charged after dozens of people told the NBC2 investigators he took their money but didn't do the work.
The NBC2 investigators began reporting on CHENEY 1 year ago. Then, less than 2 weeks ago, we pushed the story forward, questioning why CHENEY and other accused contractors are rarely arrested or charged. NBC2 investigator Rachel Polansky is live in Cape Coral. Rachel, what do we know about why CHENEY was just arrested?
A CCPD spokesperson tells me that the agency sent a warrant request to the state attorney's office for CHENEY's arrest back in February. Well, that warrant request was approved today.
What do you have to say to all the people you ripped off? Mr. CHENEY.
More than a dozen people have told me that builder Chris CHENEY, former owner of Southern Premier, took their money but never finished their homes. Tonight, CHENEY is being charged with fraud for obtaining property $50,000 or more.
It's been a long time coming.
Lisa Johnson is one of CHENEY's former customers. She told me that she paid him $15,000. When he did not do the work, she filed a complaint through the state, the Attorney General's office, and Cape Coral Police. We told her about his arrest this afternoon.
I hope that he will be able to face all of the music and in some way have to repay either some of his victims or the state of Florida that has already paid out some claims on his behalf.
Chris CHENEY will have his first appearance tomorrow morning, and I will be there. If he is found guilty of this charge, it is a first-degree felony.
Mr. CHENEY, if you're found guilty, it is a first-degree felony.
He's not going to make a comment.
Well, there's a lot of people that want to hear from him. I have to ask the questions.
That's NBC2 investigator Rachel Polansky peppering questions to a Cape Coral builder arrested and accused of defrauding the public. It came moments after Christopher CHENEY made a court appearance.
The former owner of Southern Premier Homes is accused of taking thousands of dollars from customers and not building their homes. Rachel began reporting on the allegations against him a year and a half ago.
This was the first time in 18 months I've had more than a couple of seconds face-to-face with Chris CHENEY. No, I've called him and I've gone to his house 4 times to try and get his side of the story, and he never talked with me. So this time, I walked with him from the courtroom. Mr. CHENEY, there's a lot of people who say you took their money, didn't build their homes. Is there anything you want to say to these people?
Christopher CHENEY and his attorney, Sean O'Halloran, walked away when I began asking questions, and even tried to block me from entering an elevator.
This is public property. I'm allowed to go into an elevator. This is public property, sir. We've been trying to talk to you for over a year and a half now.
He's not going to make any comment.
Mr. CHENEY, if you're found guilty, it is a first-degree felony.
He's not going to make a comment.
Well, there's a lot of people that want to hear from him. I have to ask the questions.
So how did we get here? In August 2017, Southern Premier abruptly shut down. That's when NBC2 first started talking with customers who said CHENEY took their money but didn't build their homes.
It was quite devastating to find out that the money had just been taken from us.
In August 2018, 1 year later, customers had filed reports with the state and their local law enforcement, and they were waiting. The NBC2 investigators questioned the Cape Coral police to find out why Cheney and other accused contractors had not been arrested or charged.
And victims want to know, why aren't police arresting these guys?
It just took time. In September 2018, 2 weeks after that investigation aired, Christopher Cheney was arrested and charged with scheme to defraud.
Talk to us, Mr. Cheney. Come on my property. You've been charged with scheme to defraud, Mr. Cheney.
And now, 4 months later, his case management conference.
There's nothing you want to say to all of these people.
It's inappropriate to make a comment on a case that's pending. It's also inappropriate to chase him down the courthouse.
It's also inappropriate to take people's money and not build their homes, and we've been trying to talk to him for over a year and a half.
We're not going to comment on the case while the case is pending.
New at 6 and only on NBC2, contractors held accountable when they don't do the work. A state lawmaker from Port Charlotte filed legislation that would make it easier to go after these guys.
NBC2 investigator Rachel Polansky has reported extensively on the problems, and she's breaking new information that could actually save you hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, people always ask me, why aren't these bad contractors getting arrested or jailed? Well, if this new legislation gets passed, it'll make it a lot easier for that to happen.
For the last 2 years,
it's insane. It's frustrating. It's overwhelming.
It's pretty emotional.
You've watched the heart-wrenching interviews.
So how much money have you lost throughout this ordeal?
$15,000.
We lost around $40,000.
And you've watched the NBC2 investigators question law enforcement, attorneys, and even the accused.
Mr. Cheney, there's a lot of people who say you took their money, didn't build their homes. Is there anything you want to say to these people?
Trying to find out why accused contractors rarely face criminal charges. Tonight, we got some answers.
Over time, we've realized, myself and other people in the community, lawmakers in the community, that there's been a difficulty in prosecuting these cases under the theft statute.
State Attorney Amira Fox tells me, simply put, it's because the way the law is written.
Well, it impacts my constituents.
That's why she teamed up with Representative Michael Grant to help him rewrite the statute.
To make it easier for us to prosecute these cases when people get ripped off.
Do you agree that how the law is written right now, it protects the builder or the contractor more so than the consumer?
Yeah, I think if you look at the compass of our laws, the needle is definitely pointed towards the dishonest contractor.
Representative Grant filed his legislation this morning that deletes an intent requirement for contractor fraud offenses and rewrites sections of Statute 489 that address money received by contractors and escrow accounts.
Hopefully this bill, once it's passed, will move that needle and it will protect those who have been fraudulently taken advantage of by dishonest contractors.
Did our stories help bring these issues to your attention?
Absolutely. I guess I knew about HD homes. I didn't realize that it was as rampant as it is in Collier and Lee County. So yes, it definitely had a big impact.
Senator Ben Albritton filed a similar bill in the Senate. Now both bills will go through chambers, and if they get passed, they'll be sent to the governor for a signature.
A lot of people waiting on this one. When do you think it might happen?
All right, so legislative session starts in March, ends in May. So if these revisions go through, it could become law by July 1st. Now, I do want to mention that I talked with a handful of victims today, and they just tell me they are so excited to finally see something being done.